Stangibelisco here, proprietor and operator of amateur radio station W1GV Whiskey 1 Good Vibrations. It just occurred to me that I ought to expound on the advantages of vacuum tubes, also known as valves in England, over solid-state devices. That's right, the advantages of vacuum tubes over solid-state devices such as diodes, transistors, integrated circuits, and the like. I've talked occasionally about antique radios, about how I'd love to get a collection of antique radios and make a station out of it, or even my original station, the SX-130 Hallicrafters receiver and the E.F. Johnson Viking Adventure transmitter. But vacuum tubes have one outstanding advantage over solid-state devices, which will probably become apparent tonight, tomorrow, and tomorrow night here in the black holes of Dakota Territory, United States of atrocious weather. Once again, we're going to serve as a dartboard for thunderstorms. I think every night this summer, except maybe 2 nights, I've had to watch the radar and the lightning maps websites very closely to be sure that we weren't going to suffer a power outage as a result of a lightning strike, or worse, damage to home appliances, many of which use solid-state devices. The diodes in a power supply, the transistors and integrated circuits in so-called modern, contemporary digital ham radio gear, all computers and such things, are highly vulnerable to what we call transients, often called surges, but what they really are is sudden high voltage spikes on the power lines, and lightning strikes on power lines or near strikes nearby can produce these transients, which may run into the thousands of volts just for a very brief moment, even though the root mean square RMS AC line voltage is only generally about 120 volts in the United States and 240 volts, give or take, in much of the rest of the world. If a transient manages to get through the power supply without destroying its semiconductor diodes, damage can result to internal components of receivers, transmitters, and other such things, because they're solid-state devices, and these silicon and germanium and other such components can easily be destroyed in a fraction of a second, a tiny fraction of a second, a nanosecond maybe even, by sudden spikes in voltage. We do have transient suppressors, more commonly known as surge suppressors or surge protectors, kind of a strange term to use. It's not the surge or the transient we're protecting against. We're protecting our gear against it. We're not protecting the surge from anything. We just as soon never have them. They can occur for other reasons too. But in vacuum tube equipment, even vacuum tube rectifiers, either mercury vapor or the high vacuum type, these types of surges or transients are much less likely to cause damage. Pardon me. Much less likely to cause damage because these tube or valve devices are much more rugged electrically than any solid-state device will ever be. For example, if you have an old radio, a very old radio, that uses vacuum tubes even for the rectifiers in the power supply, you needn't worry too much about leaving it plugged in during a thunderstorm even without a surge protector. But you'd better unplug your equipment if you have solid state devices, or at least have a good transient suppressor connected into the line to keep it from being damaged by transients on the line, most likely caused by lightning. And the lightning doesn't have to strike the power line itself. It can strike quite a ways away, and other things can cause transients. Other electronic devices or electrical devices in your home can produce transients on the power line. Sometimes just the mere act of switching a device on can create a transient in a poorly divined device. The clonazepam is at work again. The Cipro is over with, thank God. But now, well, never mind. I'm not going to get into that stuff anymore. Shut up, Stanley. Shut up about your foot. Shut up about all your problems. The problem is all of these modern equipments that don't use vacuum tubes have exchanged convenience and versatility for ruggedness and reliability. And I'm not sure that we're really any better off today than we were in, say, 1935 with vacuum tube radios. We're certainly better off now, though, than we were in the era of spark gap transmitters. Read up about those, will ya? I think there's one on display, by the way, in the W1AW station in Newington, Connecticut, at ARRL headquarters. I used to work there, and we used to show people the old spark gap transmitter, old Sparky. No, that was the electric chair. Well, whatever. Vacuum tubes still do have their advantages, and they haven't completely gone out of existence yet, especially in the mind of Stan Gibilisco, who will now sign off, much to your relief. See you next time. So long.